Gary Hoy was known for his sharp legal mind and his sense of humor, but inside Toronto's Holden Day Wilson law firm, he was also famous for one unusual party trick. On July 9, 1993, the firm welcomed a new group of articling students on the 24th floor of the Toronto Dominion Centre. During the tour, Hoy decided to demonstrate what he claimed was the unbreakable strength of the office windows. He had done it before, more times than anyone could remember. Each time, he would take a running start, hurl himself into the glass, and bounce back, leaving the pane intact and his audience stunned. That afternoon, Hoy performed the stunt for the students. The first impact went as expected. The tempered glass flexed, but did not break. Laughter and applause followed. Then, with the group still watching, he tried it again. This time, the glass did not shatter. Instead, the entire window assembly, pane, frame, and all, popped free from its mounting. Hoy and the window plunged 24 stories to the courtyard below. He was killed instantly. The investigation that followed revealed a critical misunderstanding. The glass itself was structurally sound, manufactured to withstand hurricane-force winds and accidental bumps. But the building's curtain wall system, designed in the 1960s, relied on a network of aluminum frames, gaskets, and anchors to hold the panes in place. These systems were built to resist wind pressure distributed across the entire surface, not the sudden, concentrated force of a grown man's body. Over the years, repeated impacts may have loosened the frame or weakened the anchors. When Hoy hit the window that final time, the system failed, not because the glass was weak, but because the frame was never meant to take that kind of load. Engineers brought in after the accident confirmed what the building code had always assumed. No office window is designed to withstand a person throwing themselves against it. The code required windows to resist wind loads and minor impacts, not deliberate, repeated collisions. The tempered glass, 4 to 5 times stronger than ordinary panes, did exactly what it was supposed to do. It stayed intact, even as it fell. The failure happened in the connections, the invisible hardware that holds everything together. Hoy's death became a textbook example in engineering and safety courses, cited by structural experts as a warning about the limits of materials and the hazards of unchecked assumptions. The story spread quickly, picked up by news outlets and legal journals alike. It was not the glass that failed, but the belief that strength in one part of a system guaranteed safety overall. In the aftermath, the law firm struggled to recover, facing both the shock of Hoy's loss and the relentless public attention. Within 3 years, Holden Day Wilson closed its doors for good. The lesson left behind was simple, but essential. Systems fail in ways that are not always obvious. What looks unbreakable might still be vulnerable at the edges, where the unseen parts do their silent work. Trusting a single component, no matter how strong, without understanding the whole can have consequences that no one expects. When safety depends on the sum of its parts, confidence without caution is a risk that cannot be taken back. Franz Reichelt arrived at the base of the Eiffel Tower before sunrise, clutching a bundle that would decide his fate. The date was February 4, 1912. He wore his invention, a bulky suit of canvas and silk, reinforced with rods and straps, meant to unfold in free fall and deliver him safely to the ground. The police had granted permission to test a parachute from the first platform, 57 meters above the Champ de Mars, but only with a dummy. Reichelt ignored the terms. He declared, in front of 30 journalists and onlookers, that he would make the jump himself. Friends pleaded with him to reconsider, pointing out the wind and the untested suit. Even a security guard tried to block his way, worried by the memory of previous dummy drops that had ended in disaster. Reichelt's confidence was absolute. He told reporters, "You are going to see how my 72 kilos and my parachute will give your arguments the most decisive of denials." He climbed the iron steps, suit rustling with every movement, and paused on the first platform. The newsreel cameras rolled, capturing every moment. He hesitated for less than a minute, then stepped onto a stool placed near the guardrail. Without a rope, backup, or test run, he steadied himself, faced the Seine, and jumped. The parachute suit opened for an instant, then collapsed around his body. Instead of slowing, he plummeted straight down. The impact was immediate and fatal. In the aftermath, the crowd fell silent. Police and journalists rushed to the scene. The suit, crushed and tangled, offered no answers. The newsreel footage spread rapidly across Europe, replayed in cinemas, and dissected in newspapers. Le Petit Parisien called it a reckless experiment. The authorities insisted they had never authorized a live test. Aviation experts pointed out that no parachute could have deployed in time from such a height, especially in a suit so heavy and unproven. Within days, Reichelt's name became shorthand for the dangers of unchecked ambition. The Aero Club de France's prize for a successful parachute remained unclaimed. Pilots and inventors debated the line between courage and folly. In the years that followed, safer parachute designs emerged, but only after countless controlled trials, rigorous dummy drops, and a new respect for the laws of physics. Reichelt's death became a warning. Innovation demands patience, evidence, and humility. Trusting untested ideas with your life is not bravery. It is a refusal to listen to the world's most unforgiving teacher, gravity. Jennifer Strange arrived at KDND 107.9's Sacramento studio before sunrise, ready to compete for a Nintendo Wii. The contest rules were simple but unforgiving. Drink as much water as you can, do not urinate, and outlast the others. The first round started with 8-ounce bottles every 15 minutes. 18 contestants lined up, each nervously eyeing the clear plastic bottles stacked behind the glass. Strange, a 28-year-old mother of 3, kept pace as the hours ticked by. The DJS joked about bladders bursting and played pop songs between updates. Early on, a listener called in, a nurse. She warned Live on Air that water intoxication could kill. The hosts laughed it off. They said, "Yeah, we are aware of that," and they signed releases, so we are not responsible. After 8 rounds, the rules changed. Now it was half-liter bottles every 10 minutes. The pace doubled. Contestants began to drop out, some vomiting, others clutching their stomachs. Strange kept going. Her voice, caught on the broadcast, sounded strained. "My head hurts." One DJ remarked she looked pregnant, her belly swollen with water. She forced a smile, but her hands shook. Another call came in, again warning of the dangers. The staff brushed it aside. "It is just water," one said. "Your body is 98% water." By hour 3, Strange had consumed nearly 2 gallons, over 7 liters. Her speech slowed. She complained of lightheadedness and pain. The hosts, still joking, asked if she was okay. She replied, "It hurts." The contest ended for her soon after. She accepted concert tickets as a consolation prize and left the studio, visibly unwell. No medical staff checked on her. The show moved on, but the damage was already done. Acute hyponatremia had begun its silent work. No one at the station called her family, and no one called for help. The line between entertainment and safety, already blurred, vanished completely. What started as a harmless stunt became a race against the body's own limits, a race no one at the station understood, and no one was prepared to stop. The legal consequences of Jennifer Strange's death arrived with the full force of California's civil courts. The wrongful death lawsuit, filed by her family in Sacramento County Superior Court, laid out a case built on the contest's design, the warnings ignored, and the absence of any medical oversight. Over 2 weeks in September 2009, Jurors heard testimony from medical experts, former contestants, and the radio staff themselves. The jury listened to the broadcast tapes, callers warning about water intoxication, DJs laughing it off. The moment Strange complained her head hurt. The evidence was stark. The contest rules had changed midstream, increasing the water volume. No one on staff had checked with a doctor, and the signed waivers never mentioned the risk of death. On October 29th, the verdict came down. The jury found Entercom Sacramento, the parent company of KDND, entirely responsible. No fault assigned to Strange herself. The damages, $16.577 million, awarded to her husband and 3 children. It was one of the largest wrongful death awards in county history. Jurors cited the station's disregard for repeated warnings and the decision to escalate the contest despite visible distress among participants. In interviews, several jurors said they were struck by the callousness captured on the tapes, the jokes, the dismissals, the insistence that waivers were enough. The message was clear: entertainment does not excuse reckless endangerment. The fallout did not stop at civil court. The Federal Communications Commission opened an inquiry into whether KDND had violated its duty to serve the public interest. The FCC's order for a license renewal hearing, issued in 2016, cited 7 major failures, from the dangerous contest design to the lack of medical oversight, and the station's failure to warn contestants about the risks. Rather than face a public hearing that could threaten its entire business, Entercom surrendered KDND's license in 2017. The station went dark, its frequency auctioned off, its brand erased from the Sacramento airwaves. 10 staff members lost their jobs. The company's merger with CBS Radio moved forward, but the stain remained. The consequences reached beyond one family's loss. The verdict and the FCC's action became a warning for the entire industry. Waivers and ratings do not erase the duty of care. The Strange case is now taught in media law, cited in safety training, and referenced in new contest guidelines. It stands as a reminder that institutions, not just individuals, are accountable for the risks they create. When the pursuit of entertainment crosses into recklessness, the law draws a hard line. The lesson is simple: protect those in your care, or be prepared to answer for the consequences. Jimmy Heselden set out that morning with his dog, steering his Segway X2 along a narrow path above the river wharf. The limestone cliffs at Jackdaw Crag dropped 42 feet to the water below, a favorite spot for locals, but never forgiving. The Segway beneath him wasn't a showroom model. It was the off-road variant, designed for rough ground, with wide tires gripping the uneven earth. At 62, Heselden had built his fortune on battlefield barriers and had recently purchased Segway Incorporated. Now, the path wound close to the cliff, hemmed in by trees, and the edge just 1.5 meters away. Sean Christie, out walking his own dog, approached from the opposite direction. The path narrowed further where they met. Christie later told the coroner he saw Heselden pause, sizing up the incline and the space between them. Instead of waiting for Christie to squeeze by, Heselden attempted a polite maneuver. He eased the Segway backwards to give more room. As he reversed, the machine wobbled. The controls that made the Segway so intuitive on open ground demanded precision here. Any miscalculation, any tilt, and the balancing system couldn't compensate. The wheels edged too close to the drop. In a split second, Heselden and the Segway tumbled over the cliff, falling 42 feet into the river below. The first person to reach the water was Christie. He found Heselden face down, unresponsive, the Segway nearby. Emergency services arrived, but there was nothing to be done. The inquest at Leeds Coroner's Court drew on Christie's account and forensic evidence from the scene. Coroner David Hinchliffe described Heselden's final act as an act of courtesy, a gesture entirely in character, according to friends and family. The coroner's verdict, was accidental death. Examination of the Segway found no mechanical fault. The device's electronics and balance systems were intact. The cliff, the path, and the split-second decision had done what no machine failure could. In the days that followed, tributes poured in for Heselden's philanthropy and business legacy. The British press focused on the bitter irony: a man who had championed new technology brought down not by the machine, but by terrain, and a moment of courtesy. Safety experts pointed to the environment: a narrow, uneven path, a sudden need to maneuver, and a drop that left no margin for error. The Segway's stability system, designed for city streets and park trails, could not account for the unpredictability of nature. Familiar technology met unfamiliar ground, and the outcome was irreversible. Heselden's death became a lesson in the limits of even the most advanced devices. Skill, experience, and confidence can all be undone by a single misjudgment when the environment changes. The coroner's words, "an act of courtesy," remained as a reminder that sometimes the smallest decisions, made in the spirit of kindness, can carry unforeseen consequences. When technology and terrain collide, it is the landscape that often sets the final terms. The safest path is not always the one that feels most familiar. Always know the ground beneath your wheels. David Grundman and his roommate drove out past Lake Pleasant on February 4, 1982, loaded with rifles and a shotgun. Their plan was simple: shoot at the giant saguaros that dotted the Sonoran Desert, a practice locals called cactus plugging. Grundman started with a 10-foot cactus, blasting it until it split and crashed to the ground. He laughed, called it easy, and turned his attention to a much older target, a saguaro standing nearly 27 feet tall, its arms twisted skyward, a century of slow growth baked into its flesh. He fired from less than 10 feet away, sending buckshot into the trunk. The saguaro's thick green skin and woody ribs absorbed the first hits, but the next blast shattered the balance. One of the arms, about 4 feet long and weighing roughly 500 pounds, broke loose and fell. Grundman had just enough time to yell before the arm struck him, pinning him in place. Then the main trunk, weakened by the gunfire, toppled as well. The combined weight crushed him instantly. James Sukochi, Grundman's roommate, watched the scene unfold in disbelief. He ran to help, but there was nothing to be done. Grundman's body was trapped beneath the fallen saguaro, a plant that had likely started growing before Arizona was a state. The remote site delayed emergency response, but the outcome was clear from the start. The Maricopa County medical examiner ruled the death accidental, instantaneous, unavoidable once the cactus began to fall. News of the incident spread quickly across Arizona. Grundman's story became a fixture in local media, a warning passed from generation to generation. The details grew sharper with each retelling: the saguaro's age, the weight of the falling arm, the distance of the shot. Environmental groups and park rangers pointed to the case as a stark example of why saguaros are protected by state law. Cutting, damaging, or removing a saguaro without a permit is a felony in Arizona, punishable by jail time and heavy fines. The law exists not just to preserve the landscape, but to protect people from the dangers of underestimating the desert's silent giants. The saguaro is more than a symbol of the Southwest. It is an ecosystem in itself, sheltering birds, storing water, and standing firm through storms and droughts. Its arms can weigh hundreds of pounds, its trunk several tons. When a saguaro falls, the force is absolute. Grundman's fate is now a cautionary tale in classrooms and ranger talks, a reminder that nature's patience is matched only by its power. Taunting the desert for sport is not control, but invitation. Mass, gravity, and the law each have their say. The lesson endures. The wild is not a stage for bravado, and the cost of ignoring its rules is both immediate and final. In 2007, a jury awarded $16.5 million to Jennifer Strange's family after a radio stunt ignored repeated warnings and ended in her death. Across all 5 cases, official records, from inquest transcripts to FCC dockets, show how a single impulsive decision can override expert advice, engineering limits, or even environmental warnings. Some questions remain. Franz Reichelt's precise parachute calculations were never recovered, and the full internal KD&D communications before the contest were not made public. Yet the consequences are clear. Today, building codes specify not just glass strength, but installation standards. Radio contests face strict oversight, and saguaro cacti remain protected by law. The evidence reminds us, safety systems, whether legal, technical, or natural, exist for a reason. Every document, verdict, and law in these archives points to the same lesson. When risk is underestimated, tragedy can be both sudden and permanent.